Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace. Over the last decade, I had the wonderful opportunity to follow a very unique guitarist, vocalist, and songwriter by the name of Raul Midon. In fact, over the last week, he's been playing an exclusive engagement at the Blue Note, and he's been playing by himself and playing for fans all over the world for over a decade with his unique twist on world music as well as contemporary pop, soul, and jazz music. In fact, his unique guitar playing is kind of reminiscent of the style of Jose Feliciano. In fact, it's one of his mentors and dear friends. Tonight we're going to sit down and talk about Raul's evolution, how he's evolved and how he keeps evolving. And we're also going to talk about his latest CD and DVD, which is a live project which really captures where he's at musically. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the sounds of Mr. Raul Midon, live at the Blue Note.
Where there's a will, there is a way. Oh, where there's a will, there is a way. It's a crying shame to lose a game as a prisoner in a picture frame made for you and me. If only we could see the invisible chains, invisible chains. Why do we fight both day and night? Doesn't matter who's wrong or right, the end is still the same. We're breaking from the strain of the invisible chain, invisible chain. Where there's a will, there is a way. Where there's a will, there is a way. When I was a little boy, vivid dreams were my favorite toy. Sweet music set me free. I close my eyes to see the invisible chains, invisible chains. Now I'm grown to be a man, gonna make my way with my own two hands. Wish that I could be absolutely free from the invisible chains, invisible chains.
Raul, congratulations on your latest CD, Invisible Chains. And this is a CD that it took years in the making. One, this is your very first live recording, and you recorded it at Joe's Pub. Why did you decide to record a live DVD and CD at this time in your career?
Well, I mean, really, it was one of the things that the fans had wanted, and it was also, you know, people say, oh, you know, you've got to see it and this and that, and so we thought, well, let's give people, you know, a chance to hear something that will really give them the sense of being there. We made sure that, you know, we had mics on the audience and really took care to make the quality of the recording as good as possible, and got a professional camera crew there so people can really get a sense of, you know, what the show is like with this.
Raul, you are now, you know, you've been in the game for a while now, and writing and choosing material and performing live is different. I've seen you perform many times. What were the songs that you knew that you were going to perform, and selecting the material and editing and putting all this together? That had to be hard also.
Yeah, but you know, a lot of that comes from doing a lot of shows, and you know, there were certain things that are really come across when people see them. You know, so for instance, Sunshine, we wanted to, you know, I had worked on this thing where I play bongos and sing and play guitar at the same time. And so, you know, on a record, I mean, you know, that could just be someone overdubbing, you know. So with this, you know, people can see me doing it. So it, you know, it has the impact that it would have if people saw it live, you know.
I'm so happy she's gonna stay. How could you say that? You don't believe that. You only say it to keep from crying. I don't need her to keep me from harm. I don't need her, and I can't remember the feel of her arms. How could you say that? You don't believe that. You only say it to keep from feeling low for being so torn when it comes to how I feel about her. It's been so long that I've lived without her. It's unreal to reveal how it feels to lose the one who calls you son for the first time.
Raul, being in the industry right now, you're now what we call an independent artist. And
Right.
how easy or how hard is it now? Because when you first came out, you were backed by a major label, but it seems like now you're touring freely, you're recording the material that you want. Has the industry kind of catered to you, or have your fans catered to your craft?
I don't think the industry's catered to me at all, but I don't think it really matters. You know, the part of the industry that matters is the touring and the publishing, and I have control of both of those. So, you know, I think this is a time for artists in the industry. I mean, for artists to go outside the industry and still be able to make an impact. You know, the industry, the mainstream industry, is not interested in artists right now, in my opinion. I mean, they're interested in, you know, it's music is you know, a way to sell other things. So, fortunately for me, you know, I don't really need the industry, you know, per se. You know, I feel I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to be myself, and whoever wants to get on board can get on board. You know.
Let's talk about your origins. You grew up and you were born in New Mexico, and you have a twin brother. Tell me about the time when you knew that music was going to be a very integral part of your life.
I always knew it was. I mean, there was never a time when it wasn't. The only transition was just, you know, how does one, you know, make it into, you know, making a living. I mean, that was really the only question. Then there was never a question about whether music was an integral part of my life. I mean, since I was 4 or 5 years old, I've thought about it every single day of my life, I think. So
I understand that 2 of your first pieces of music that you own was Abraxas by Santana.
Yes.
And also was it Jose Feliciano?
Yeah, that's right. Wow. You did some homework there. Yeah, that's right. There were 2 cassettes, and I got a cassette machine when I was 5 years old as a gift, and those were the 2 cassettes that I had. So, of course, you know, they had a great influence. I mean, at that time, the whole and being in New Mexico also, you know, the Latin element of what Santana was doing was very, very in at the time, you know, with people in New Mexico. They considered it as sort of one of us kind of thing, you know.
So would it be safe to say that you incorporated a lot of Mr. Santana's guitar riffs into your own vocal and also your own guitar style?
In a way. I mean, I think I incorporated the Santana's embracing of eclectic musical elements. You know, whether, you know, I mean, I'm not an electric guitar player. You know, a very big part of what Santana does is play electric guitar. But Santana's willingness and boldness about doing something, you know, a little different. This wasn't just, you know, sort of regular rock and roll. This wasn't, you know, Americans trying to copy British invasion, or it wasn't just blues based. It was you know, Latin based. So that, I think that made the biggest impression on me.
Now I understand that you started formally training and taking and studying guitar around 6.
Yeah.
But flamenco was something that kind of crept into your mix also as you started to learn the guitar and the rudiments of playing guitar.
Actually, that was the first thing. When I was 6, I was flamenco lessons. It wasn't formal classical guitar. I mean, it seemed very formal to me at the time at 6 because, you know, flamenco is a very deep and disciplined tradition in and of itself. It's not necessarily based on reading music, but it's based on some pretty virtuosic playing and techniques. So, you know, that was the first thing, and then classical guitar, and then jazz guitar.
Who are some of your guitar influences next to Mr. Santana? I know you've got a plethora of many musicians that you grew up listening to.
Guitar, you know, I definitely jumped on the Paco de Lucia bandwagon at some point. Huge influence. The whole guitar trio that started happening in the 80s with McLaughlin and DiMeola, and that was big. Also, there was a point when I listened to a lot of classical guitar, you know, Segovia even. And then later, you know, of course, started listening to jazz guitar. So people like Wes Montgomery, even, you know, John Scofield, Pat Metheny, John Abercrombie, I mean, and Tuck Andrus. Big influence because Tuck Andrus had such a unique approach to the acoustic guitar. The other guy is Lenny Breau. Huge influence on me.
Sunshine, when you're with me I can fly. Y'all ready? Yeah! Check this out. sunshine.
You have a style that you have created, and it's called the slap attack guitar technique. And I want to know how you developed that, and it's a very integral part of your style and how you play your music and how you interpret music, but it's a very difficult, complex.
Well, part of it is just the desire to play drums and guitar at the same time. I mean, that was a big part of it. You know, percussion was one of my first things that I was interested in, even before guitar. Actually, when I was, you know, four years old, I was playing things on everything I could on my lap. You know, but also I have to say, I'm sorry, I have to say a big part of it was actually coming to New York, and the reason I say that is because the thing that I realized when I got here was it wasn't about being the best necessarily, or it was about being different and about having yourself stand out somehow. You know, there's 100,000 guitar players here, you know, and everyone is, and one person's better than the next. And I realized, wow, this is a sea of musicians. You know, this will swallow you up. And so this thing that I had sort of was in there got brought out to the fore, because I realized this made me, separated me from the sort of singer-songwriter guy that strums and sings about, you know, losing his girlfriend or you know, some sensitive subject, you know. So this sort of warrior approach at least put me in a different place, you know, made me stand out. And it was all about standing out. When you move to New York, it's all about that, because God knows there's a lot of musicians here.
Explain the concept. Talk about how you've been able to fuse all of that together, because you're doing pretty much, you're killing two birds with one stone.
Well, I mean, it's just, you know, it involves tapping, it involves hammering, it involves finding all the places in which your guitar resonates. It involves harmonics. I mean, I just made a conscious effort to start working on it and to figure out, you know, how I could accompany myself in such a way that would sort of fill up the space, you know. And it's very different because, you know, when you learn how to play guitar, especially when you're playing with a band, it's actually the opposite. In some ways, you know, you learn to play chords without roots and so forth, you know, because you have a bass player. So with this style, because I ended up playing a lot of solo guitar, you know, there's a lot of breaking things down too. You know, when I play bass and guitar, I play the bass, then I play the guitar, and I slowly put them together, and it's a very painstaking process that I work on all the time. You know, so it's a continuing process. You know, it never really ends.
You know, your songwriting is very, very fresh. It's witty, and it's pretty much, you're romantic, and you're also a cynic as well. Yeah. Tell me about some of the processes of how you write a song, because, you know, I think a couple of your signature songs, a lot of people really like, because they can connect to your message and what you're saying.
I think, you know, songwriting is a very elusive thing. I think you have to be open to being inspired at any given moment, and be ready to grasp something and say, wow, that is interesting. I'm going to make a song out of that. Something that somebody says, you know, whoa, that's an interesting idea. I think the universe offers us probably hundreds, maybe thousands of ideas a day. It's just whether it's whether we're ready to receive them or not, whether we're in the mode to process it and create something from it. You know, I have been interested in trying to write interesting enough, even though I'm not really pop music, I really don't consider myself pop music anymore. I used to think I was, but I love songs with hooks. You know, I still love the idea of coming up with something that is universal and yet poetic, and it kind of sticks in your head. And I love good melodies, and I love interesting chords. And you know, 30 years ago, that was Steely Dan, you know, and that was, you know, pop music. And it isn't now, but it's still, you know, what I like, my approach, you know.
Wake up in the morning and I learn the page. Don't understand what's going down. Everybody's acting so outrageous. It's gonna take a lot of love to turn things around. I'm just a man trying to find the reasons why I stay. Took some time to realize that I am what I am. And I wanna be rich, I wanna be happy, and live inside a love that shines bright enough to last a lifetime. I wanna be rich, more than a fantasy. Ride the winds and climb, 'cause it's all a state of mind. Now here's the jazz portion of this song.
Tell me about the story of State of Mind. Where were you mentally, physically, and spiritually when, first of all, when you were putting the record together, and two, you had the wonderful opportunity to work with, God rest his soul, Arif Mardin.
Right. Well, I mean, it was a very cool place. When the actual song State of Mind came out of a very dark situation. You know, it was one of those down times in New York when I had all kinds of trouble with my voice. I didn't know if I was going to work. You know, running out of money, and I literally was like, I want to be rich so I can keep doing this. And it kind of came out of that place. But when we were making the album, I mean, it was one of those times when I was actually aware of how cool what I was doing was at the moment. You know, so much of the time we go through our lives not being aware of where we are at that moment, and then later saying, wow, those were really good days, you know. But every day when I got into the cab and to go to the studio to work, I knew that this was really cool and that this was really special.
Tell me about your relationship with Mr. Mardin, because this man was really one of the backbones of Atlantic Records and some of the great records that he produced with some of the legendary artists, and you were in that class of musicians that he worked with throughout his career.
I think Arif, the biggest single thing that Arif did for me was to affirm my identity as an artist. You know, when you're making records, especially when you're in the industry with a major label, there is so much pressure to try to be trending at the moment. You know, this is what's on the radio. This is what you want to do. This is what's going to sell records. And because of Arif's iconic position in the industry and his personality, he just wasn't like that. And so when he heard what I was doing, he was the first, maybe, and other than his son Joe, and maybe only producer who said, what you're doing is great. All my job is to capture it on record. He didn't try to change it or you know, do this and that. Well, this is, you know, we still talked about singles, but it was within what I was doing. And, you know, I wouldn't be the same. I don't know that I would have kept with it if it hadn't been for Arif, because when somebody as well placed and universally worshipped or universally admired as Arif says that what you're doing is cool, then you know it's cool. You know.
I want to piggyback on something that you said earlier. You said that you were in the process of recording a new project, and one of your collaborators is the legendary Bill Withers, and you were in the documentary on Bill Withers. Tell me about his genius, because Bill's songs reflect a lot of storytelling and reflections of his life. And what was it like first meeting him, and then also just the fact that you are now collaborating and have one-on-one contact with a guy who's really mean a lot to R&B and soul music?
I think the thing about Bill Withers that makes an impression on me is he is, what you hear in the songs is who he is, you know. He has a way of thinking that is very much, he always cuts to the chase, you know. I mean, there's a million things, you know. I forget what I was saying. Yeah, something came up, and I was like, you know, I just don't have any tolerance for bullshit anymore. He goes, well, the bull didn't want it. You know, I mean, but he has a million, you know, things where his songs are just little snapshots of the way he talks, of the way he is, you know. And I think that's his genius, is that he knew to put that in a song. You know, Grandma's Hands, that's exactly the way he talks. You know, Lean on Me, that's him.
Heartbreak Road, yeah, I mean.
Hello like before. Yeah. I mean, that is it's genius. Because you know exactly what he's saying, but it's never quite been said like that before. You're meeting a person that used to be your lover. Maybe you used to be your wife. Hello like before. That's Bill Withers in a nutshell.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the Blue Note here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank Raul Midon for his time, as well as the staff and management here at the Blue Note. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Until next time, peace.
Where there's a will, there is a way. Oh, where there's a will, there is a way. It's a crying shame to lose